What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Rezolve AI. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what really moved it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Rezolve did go up 1.97%, 313 the high, 293 the low. So today, Rezolve defied logic. In the first half of the trading day, it was kind of trading in line with the broader market, which was largely cautious and being suppressed prior to Powell. And then when the broader market started to sell off, Rezolve just said, F it, I'm going higher. So very impressive kind of stuff. I'll go over some of the institutional transactions later in the video, but today there was a couple data points that came out first thing. So we had mortgage applications, mortgage market index coming in, both a little bit lower than the previous. So that wasn't all that great, but didn't really move the market all that much. The big thing for today was the interest rate decision, and we didn't get a cut, which was kind of the writing on the wall anyways. But what Powell stated afterwards, that's one thing that really freaked out the broader market, because the market's always forward looking. It wants to have a catalyst, and the market's been very fixated on interest rate cuts. And so ultimately Powell came out and said that a lot of the inflationary data has been on point, and a lot of the labor data has been somewhat stagnant, if not improving. So based on that, there really isn't any rush to cut rates. And so this is where you did have this drop to 13.5% of a likelihood of a 25 basis point cut for the upcoming March 18th meeting. So the market really freaked out because of that. Like I said, Rezolve just said F it and decided to go higher, which was rather impressive. There really wasn't anything for news. So Dan didn't say anything on social media, no press releases, no SEC filings. So it was rather odd. There was one thing I do want to share with you though. It was posted by Tyler. I know he does Rezolve videos as well. I don't actually follow him on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, but he obviously I engage in Rezolve posts, so I assume that's how the algo just gives me his stuff. But in here, he kind of talks about early stages NVIDIA and how investing in Rezolve and several other kind of AI plays is equivalently the same. But one thing that he mentions in here about Rezolve is that for 2026, their revenue estimate is currently 900%. And I know Rezolve got a ton of new ratings, and I think I've been largely focusing on the price targets that were given, not necessarily the kind of estimates. So estimates to the earnings per share and revenue. So quickly upon seeing this, I popped over and I looked at this, and lo and behold, he's somewhat accurate. I think he's kind of on the high end, but right now for 2026, it is estimated for there to be 326 million. So that does work out to be 712% year-over-year growth. I think what Tyler's doing is he's using the high end. So as far as analysts go, 313 the low, 350 the high. So I think Tyler's using the 350, that'll get close to that 900%. But still, this is huge. And for 2025, I know their earnings hasn't really come out yet, and so we'll have to wait until April, regrettably. But currently, the estimate is 40.13 million for 2025, and that works out to be 21,000 plus year-over-year growth. And so again, this is a nice domino effect, what would potentially happen for 2027. So right now that's sitting at 56%. So again, this is pretty good stuff. And analysts, based on this, they're assuming Rezolve is going to be profitable and by 2027. So that'd be pretty on point if that does actually happen. So hats off to Tyler for bringing this up. Definitely a lot of good information. And I think this also does put it in perspective, even though I don't always agree with everything that happens with Rezolve and whatever, but I think just generally the sector is going to completely blow up and it's going to just grow at an extremely fast rate. So Rezolve, in reality, if they do a lot more acquisitions, strategic acquisitions, they can get into the States by Q2 as what they mentioned. You never know, could move up profitability to possibly late 2026, maybe. So we'll have to wait and see. But Nonetheless, looking at shorts returned 207,000 shares, 22.37% of the free floats being shorted, works to be 26 million shares overall being shorted. DTC has been kind of dipping a little bit, and that's just because shorts have been starting to return over the last couple of trading days. Cost to borrow is 3.61%, so that is an annual rate, not a daily rate, so it's not that big of a deal. Looking at the options, today we had 529,000 in calls, 177 in puts. So this was kind of on the low end, kind of quiet, and was very abnormal because we did have 44% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. From a bull standpoint for this week, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around 350. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 3. So you do have that kind of back and forth, but definitely a little bit more upside than down. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So I know I mentioned this in my video yesterday or the day before. It all blends together. But my last video, I ultimately did say that there was a lot of abnormal buying that was kind of occurring, and that could be just big money knowing something ahead of time. And just given the price action of what happened with Rezolve, how it just went up roughly exactly the same time as a lot of those big transactions, it is fair to assume maybe big money is acting based on something that might be coming out fairly soon. Because again, popping over here just on my watch list, you had SoFi go down, Robinhood go down. You had also Palantir go down, SoundHound. You had pretty much everything post Powell just go down, except you had good old Rezolve. It just decided to say F and went higher. So something to kind of keep in mind. These are all the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. Given how shorts didn't really do too much, it's fair to assume that most of this was actually linked to them. But aside from that, moving on with it closing at 310, it is between this R1 and the pivot. So 275 and 324 is the next strong support and target. This 324 wasn't touched today, and this 275 most likely is also one reason why Rezolve's kind of moving higher a little bit, because it bounced off of that yesterday. So that's usually what happens whenever you hit a strong support or a resistance. It usually causes kind of a nice consolidation. Aside from that though, moving on to the actual chart itself. So it is right now above the 50-day moving average. So it was able to successfully get over that. Yesterday it landed right below that, meaning today was going to be a very big day for it. So tomorrow it really needs to stay as well above that 50-day moving average, sitting at 304. Aside from that, you see a little bit more willing buyers, but that's more around that 280 range. Number of sellers kind of just went poof. So a lot of maybe sellers just withdrew their orders and their limit orders, whatever. So definitely some interesting stuff and good opportunity for Rezolve to kind of move higher. But in my opinion, I know bouncing off of this key support was a good thing, but I think Rezolve does need to put out a little bit more news. Ideally, something associated to, let's say, entering into the States, because I know they mentioned it, but what is their actual plan of action? So let me know your thoughts on Rezolve. Give yourself a shout out if you bought, if you sold, or whatever else. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.